First time of Black History Month is empowering.
Jackie Robinson.
Power.
Justice. Freedom.
Django.
I think of injustice.
Louis Armstrong.
Montgomery.
Power.
I think it is insufficient. It's not enough.
Martin Luther King.
Powerful.
Legacy.
Proud.
Obama. Martin Luther King.
Right.
Ray Charles.
Untold.
Short.
Right.
Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela.
Well, welcome to chapel. You know, one of the things about going to college, living through this pandemic that's so hard is that we just can't gather the way we want to. So I hope you'll accept this virtual chapel as a way to at least attempt to connect and talk about some things that are really important. And I picked up this pocket watch today. It was owned by my grandfather who died in 1932. And when I look at that watch, it reminds me of my history. And I don't know a lot about my grandfather. I'm really early in my journey to understand him and his experience living in the hills of East Tennessee in a little place called Mulberry Gap. But this month, we're celebrating Black History Month. And this chapel is not exclusively about that, but it does focus on that. Our preacher in this chapel is a graduate of Point University, Jalen Gardner, and he does a nice job of speaking from a text in Exodus, but also raising some really important questions for us to consider as we try to understand Black history better. Sarah Huxford also shares some book recommendations that I want to challenge you to read, because they help us understand who we are as Black and white, and how we experience life together, and the rich and important history that many Black Americans have contributed to this world and this country that we live in. And then there's a spoken word by a couple of our students that I think you'll enjoy. And I hope through all of this, you'll allow God to speak to you and challenge how you think about yourself, how you think about culture, how you think about Black history. And I pray that it will simply be seeds that are sown in our hearts that help us do a better job of loving and including and sharing life across various cultures and learn to embrace the wonderful richness of God and His creation.
What's up, Point University, and welcome to Chapel. This month is Black History Month, and these songs that we're going to be singing are a tribute to our Black history and Black culture. Enjoy these songs and let's worship together. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. We give you all the glory. We worship you, our Lord. You are worthy to be praised. We give you all the glory. We worship you, our Lord. You are worthy to be praised.
When I was younger, I was sure black was a burden. But through all the smoke, the fire, the tear gas, I think I'm finally getting what it is meant by the word blackness. Black history is a verb, not a noun. Black history means standing up when they hold you down. Black history is not really about the color. It's this crazy idea that we should all love one another. Black history is MLK and Rosa Parks. It's Jackie Robinson and other sports landmarks. It's Langston Hughes, and C.J. Walker too. But I think the real poetic thing is that it's also me and you. It's Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali. It's jazz music, Ellington and Louis. It's everything our ancestors dreamed to be. And all this change created by a black person like me.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Point University's Chapel for this month. I hope you're all doing well, staying safe. My name is Jalen Gardner. If you don't know me, I actually graduated from Point University back in 2018. I love my time at Point. I was a humanities and biblical studies major. When I was there, I think there was 2 of us. So, it could get lonely sometimes. When I left, there was no one else. So I hope it's still a major at Point. If you are a humanities and biblical studies major, stay strong, recruit. It's a long road, but I believe in you. If you don't know, you won't understand, but it's okay. Have pride in your major. It's okay. Not everybody can do it. But like I said, I love my time at Point. I had a lot of good experiences. I learned a lot about myself and who I was and what God had called me to do. And I hope you're able to do the same thing, even in these times. But just stay out of trouble, wear a mask because it's okay to wear a mask and protect yourself and others. But anyway, I just want to go ahead and jump in and get started. So when Huxford reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to speak, I was very enthused to have the opportunity. And my mind automatically and immediately started erasing and thinking about what I was going to talk about. And then I asked him what the theme was. And he said it was rescued and delivered, with this idea that God not only delivers us from our sin, but delivers us to walk in and join Christ in ministry, in the kingdom of God in the ministry. So my mind, as it does start erasing, I'm going to sleep and waking up what I'm going to talk about. And the same theme, the same story kept coming to mind. So today we're going to be in Exodus. Many of you heard the book that I'm going to be coming from and kind of already know where I'm going, but I pray that you stick with me, kind of allow me to flesh this out, allow me to walk through this, navigate through this, and just come to it with an open mind. But for those of us, or those of you who may not know the story, don't worry, I'm going to give us a little backstory. But we're going to be in Exodus. I'm kind of just going to paraphrase and walk us through most of the book. But to give you a backstory, Israel was God's chosen people. God chose Israel. God showed favor to Israel. But in this time, Israel was in captivity in Egypt. So we have the northern parts of Africa, Egypt. Israel is there in slavery. They're calling out to God, deliver us, free us. They don't want to be in captivity anymore. So God hears their cries and he begins to mold and prepare Moses to deliver them from Egypt. So God goes to think with Moses. Moses doesn't feel qualified. God's like, bro, I'm God. Do what I tell you to do. It's going to be okay. So Moses goes to the Pharaoh, the king, and says, let my people go. Obviously, Pharaoh's like, I don't know what you thought this was, but they're not going anywhere. So God says, okay, I'm going to have to, do some convincing. And God sends 10 plagues in order to bend the will of Pharaoh to let his people go. And after 10 plagues, the last one being that the firstborn of everybody's son, the first son born would die, Pharaoh says, all right, y'all can go. Please get up out of here. So Israel is set free. They're leaving. They're going. As they're leaving, Pharaoh's like, actually, I don't really want them to do that. Go get them. So he sends his army to chase after them. And this is probably the part of the story that you all know where it gets interesting. They get to the Red Sea. And I would assume it'd probably be a pretty awkward moment. Moses is like, okay, God, you sent us out here. They chasing us and we're in front of a sea. What we gonna do? And God said, hey, it's no problem. I got you. So he parts the Red Sea. We probably all heard this. He parts the Red Sea. So the Israelites are able to walk through it on dry land. Once they get to the other side, the Egyptians are in there chasing them. God allows the water to fall on them. The Israelites are free. They're gone. the Egyptians were taken care of. You make me think about, like, wow, God really came through. Multiple times God showed his power. You know, if I'm an Israelite, I'm feeling good right now because I am free. And that's good. That'll be right. I mean, that's what I'm feeling too. And I just want to make sure, like, we're all on the same page. Israel's in slavery. They cried to God to free them. He frees them through these miraculous signs. And they should be grateful and joyful, as we should all be. And they were, until they got thirsty. And I'm not talking about Valentine's Day is coming up and I'm getting thirsty. I mean, like, actually thirsty. And God says, okay, there's no problem. And he provides water for them. He says, okay, I'm going to give you a means to have clean drinking water. He provides it. Cool. A little bit later, they say, well, God, we hungry too. We got to eat. God says, no problem. I'm going to provide food for you every single day. So every single day, God provides what they call manna. Every day, this bread would just fall from the sky. They didn't have to do anything for it. But God provided. But then, the Israelites had the audacity in Exodus 16 to say, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by pots of meat and ate all the bread we wanted. Instead, you brought us into this wilderness to make this whole assembly die of hunger. Now, Israel wanted to be free. God freed them. And we've seen God provide and make a way over and over and over and over again. Yet they're still complaining. Yet, God, being full of grace and full of mercy, says, no problem, I got you. And he just continued to provide manna every single day for 40 years. 40 years. Now, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to be real honest with you. As you can see, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm going to start my diet soon. You know, I've been working on it, getting prepared. I've been trying to mentally get prepared to start this diet. But, you know, I love wings. My favorite, you know, hot lemon pepper sprinkles. You know, if you give me that, we eat good all day. You know what I'm saying? I know some of y'all can relate. If not, I'm sorry. Probably, you know, wings, top of the food chain for me. But if somebody said you had to eat this every day for 40 years, you know, I'd be like, okay, you know, that's cool. You know, we can't switch it up, you know, like diversify my palate. You know, I like different things. You know, can I get a burger? Can I get some fries? You know what I'm saying? But, you know, either way, you know, somebody said, I'm going to provide this for you every day. I'm good. You know, it's free. You know, I ain't got to do nothing for it. But the Israelites were not. They complained. And I just think that's so interesting. God was faithful to them every single day, yet they complained. They found the worst in it. They didn't want it. And that's what I kind of want to speak to our current situation. That's kind of what I want to step into what I see today. Now, I want to start off by saying and be very clear that I don't think America is Israel, or America is Egypt, or black people are Egypt, or Israel and white people. I don't want to get into that. I know that's sometimes where our mind naturally goes, but I want to go and lean deeper into that. I want us to see something deeper, because it's easy to make those parallels and those illusions, but I want us to let go of those constructs just for a moment and lean in to this bigger idea. And I think that bigger idea is the mindset of the Israelites. You know, many of them were freed physically in this moment. God provided a better way of life. God provided a better way for them to live. He listened to their prayers, yet they weren't satisfied with it. They were freed physically, but they weren't freed mentally. They weren't freed psychologically. When I think about our situation in America, the situation in our communities, I kind of see the same thing. God has shown us how he can be faithful and illuminating how beautiful it is to live in diversity. Yet we turn our backs to it and we say that our way of doing life is better. God has given us the tools to step away from racism. Yet some of us, if we're honest, want to continue to live in that life. You know, we may not like to say it, but let's call a spade a spade. You know, God has revealed different systemic issues, yet some of us want to turn a blind eye to them and say, they're not real. You know, like, man, that's not true. That's not real. That's not really what we believe and think. That's not how things are, even though it is so evident. And the beauty of the gospel is that God has delivered us from all of that. God has given us the means and opportunity through Christ to live as unified people, yet we often reject it. Earlier, I mentioned that, you know, for 40 years, the Israelites ate the same thing. And you may be asking, why they had to eat the same thing for 40 years? Well, it's because they were in the wilderness for 40 years. And they were in the wilderness for 40 years because God did not see fit for them to step in the promised land because of their mentality. Like I said, they were free physically, but mentally, they were in bondage to the old way of life. So when I think about the theme of being rescued and delivered, my question for all of you watching or listening, are you mentally ready to live in a community of true diversity? It's really easy to be there physically. Going to Point University, you are physically in a diverse community, probably more diverse than a lot of places elsewhere. It's easy to be there physically sometimes, but are we there to be there? Are we ready to be there mentally as a school, as a team, as an administration, as an individual? Are we ready to embrace the different and do what we want to stay, or do we want to stay in the way things used to be? When I think about Black History Month, I think about all the people who were not satisfied with things staying the way they were. That's why we celebrate them. That's why we honor them. Because they did something first. They did something different. They were not satisfied with saying, okay, this is how things are going to be. You know, we stay over here. They stay over there. I do my own. They do everything. No. They said, no, God has called us to live differently. I'm not going to stay in the same way of bondage that I used to. It's really easy to quote Martin Luther King on Martin Luther King Day. It's easy. I've seen a bunch of people post it. But I didn't see those same people living that way the other 364 days a year. You know, it's really easy to admire what Jackie Robinson did and overcame. But is it easy to lean into the things he had to endure to get to where he was? The thing about the people we honor Black History Month, they had to be mentally in it. They had to be mentally prepared. They had to be mentally okay with the things that they needed. You know, and some of us may not like Black History Month, but the thing is we cannot deny the need for Black History Month while things that we fought for decades ago are still at the forefront of our country today. The same things Martin Luther King was fighting for, we're still fighting for in a lot of ways today. So we honor them. We pay homage to them. We look to them because we still need to move forward. We still need to progress. And I think this past year revealed a lot. I think this past year revealed how far we've come, but also how far we have to go. You know, for some of us, you know, this has been our reality for a long time. We've been trying to talk about it for a long time. And for some people, you just joined the party, and that's okay. I'm glad you're here now. But we still have a long way to go. And regardless of where you are on the spectrum, as Christians, we're called to live differently. We're called to lead differently. We're called to love differently. And too often it's easy to get stuck in the mindset of why do things have to change? It's easy to get stuck in the mindset of why can't we keep doing all that? Why do we have to keep talking about race? Why does this have to keep being a thing? Why do we have a Black History Month? It's because God has called us to live a different life than what we did in the past. Going forward, I want to ask you, will you live in a rescued and delivered mindset, or will you continue to allow the perpetual cycle of racism, hatred, and division continue? It's easy to stay comfortable. It's easy to stay in that way. Talk is cheap. You know, it's easy to make a post. It's easy to throw some scripture at something. But what are the things you're going to do to make your everyday life different? My question is, Point University, what are you going to do? From administration down to the students, coaches, athletes, everybody, What are you going to do? Are we going to continue to do the things of the world? Are we going to continue to be complacent? Are we going to continue to do the very small things? Or are we going to step in the way that God has called us to live? Are we going to allow God to change our mental capacity and what He has called us to live into? When we get to heaven, we're not going to be spaced out in sections. We're going to be all there, united, worshiping the same God together. And we have the opportunity to have that life on earth as it is in heaven. And that's what my desire is. So like I said, my question for you, are you going to live your life mentally delivered, or we're just going to be there physically? Thank you.
As many of you already know, I love to read. I think that reading both fiction and nonfiction is one of the best ways that we can develop empathy for people who don't look or talk or think or vote or worship like we do. Cultivating a daily habit of reading, even if it's just a few pages a day, can also help us ensure that we become lifelong learners. As we celebrate Black History Month, I want to speak very frankly and directly to my fellow white Christians. We have a lot of work to do when it comes to dismantling racism in this country, and that is our work to do. We cannot expect our Black and brown brothers and sisters in Christ to do that work for us. Reading, educating ourselves on these issues is a great way to start doing that work in our own lives and communities. If you're not sure where to begin, I have a couple of suggestions for you. Waking Up White by Debbie Irving is a fantastic resource for people who don't think they're racist and are struggling to understand why friends and colleagues of color might think they are. It will teach you a lot about the history of this country and about how systemic injustice has affected Black Americans in particular. Some of you may have watched the movie Just Mercy when it came out last year, fantastic film, but this is definitely one of those times when you also need to read the book. Brian Stevenson's work is so crucially important for us to understand the inequality that is inherent in our criminal justice system, not just toward adults of color, but also toward children. And finally, for a modern perspective on what it's like to live in the United States as a Black Christian, I encourage you to read Austin Channing Brown's beautiful book, I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. These 3 books are truly the tip of the iceberg when it comes to educating ourselves on dismantling racism, but they're a great place to start. If you have questions or you're interested in additional recommendations, please feel free to reach out to me or any member of the Point Diversity Task Force.
Thanks so much for being a part of our virtual chapel tonight. I hope that you heard something that will have a meaningful impact on your life. I'm so grateful that Point has produced graduates like Jalen Gardner, who had a fantastic sermon for us. I'm grateful that Point has employees like Leonard Phillips, who did the spoken word part of our service, and for Professor Sarah Huxford, who provided us some reading opportunities for the future. I'm grateful for students like those of my spiritual formation team who did some of the other elements of our service tonight. And most importantly, I'm grateful to be a part of a school, part of a community of faith that recognizes the needs our culture presents us with, and that we are doing our best to meet those needs. And certainly a part of that would be the recognition that this month is Black History Month. And the truth of the matter is that all of us are beneficiaries of the hard work and creativity and genius of lots of African American people who have preceded us, but for lots of reasons never really got credit for the contributions they've made. So I hope that our service tonight, like we've been doing for years during the month of February, will at least acknowledge that we are concerned about our culture. We're concerned about all parts of our culture, and hopefully we're doing some things to make the world a better place. Thank you again for being here tonight. I hope that you've heard something that can help you be a different person so that you can go out and make a difference in the world in which we live. Thank you, and God bless.
Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who's that girl dressed in red? God's gonna trouble the water.